1931. Mounting conflicts in Europe, Asia, and other parts of the world are far from America's mindset. Its staunch policy of isolationism, though, is finally put to the test. Japan invades Manchuria. For many historians, this marks the start of the Second World War. Not many Americans cared one way or another about Japan's aggression. At the time, the U.S. was suffering its greatest depression in history. Jobs were scarce, food lines open, crime was up. The Dust Bowl wiped out crops, and Americans focused on problems of their own. By 1933, something in Europe did draw attention in the U.S. A popular political organizer, Adolf Hitler, was made Chancellor of a newly confident Germany. After years of soul-searching, the Germany battered and bitter from the First World War had now found its voice in Hitler's Nazi Party. Even for an isolationist country like the U.S., a particular declaration by Hitler made one sit up and take notice. Today we rule Germany. Tomorrow, the world.
Half of the bomber crews that I was flying with never made it. The average crew didn't get beyond 17 missions before they were shot down, or where the plane blew up, or they exploded on takeoff, or whatever. I think the people that paid the price were those who had arms shot off, or left us crippled, or who were killed by combat activity. I can't really say the war cost me a lot.
Bernie Flatley was the third of 6 children born to Andrew and Margaret Flatley in the sleepy rural town of Stockbridge, Wisconsin. Bernie's life in Stockbridge was quite normal. He had 2 older brothers, John and Jean, as well as a younger brother, Jim, and 2 younger sisters, Margaret and Alice. A proper education was a priority in the Flatley home. All Flatley children attended St. Mary's Catholic School. Besides the usual schoolwork, the Flatley children also participated in a comprehensive Catholic upbringing. Mother Margaret, after all, would have it no other way. They attended Sunday service, embraced the sacraments of penance and Holy Communion, and said their prayers at bedtime each and every night. In a war with so many names, Iwo Jima, Omaha Beach, Battle of the Bulge, an air base known as Pantanella lies all but forgotten. From this place in southern Italy, near the Adriatic coast, the 464th and 465th Bomb Groups, divisions of the 15th Air Force, encamped on adjoining hills above the Ofanto River. From here, they flew hazardous missions to targets with names more familiar, such as Ploesti, Romania, Black Hammer, and Anzio, and contributed in no small fashion, yet in an extremely short period of time, to the Allied effort of the Second World War. The men who lived a lifetime in this place can now look back with pride on their accomplishments, their hardships, and their duty. Like his friends Ed the Preater and Tom Goss, Bernie was too young to enter the service when the U.S. entered World War II. But Bernie did manage to get drafted when he was 17 years old. Like most Americans at that time, Bernie accepted the request and reported for immediate duty. What he didn't know then, though, was that he would be assigned to the 15th Air Force, who, in cooperation with the British Royal Air Force, had just begun planning for a massive air campaign across all of Germany, with the goal of the ultimate surrender of German forces in the European theater. For most who enlisted in the 15th Air Force, It all began at the highly intensive training facilities such as McCook Air Force Base near Lincoln, Nebraska. From this initial and exhaustive preparation, these eager crews embarked across the Atlantic to engage in the largest war in history. While some made the 21-day journey on Liberty ships, such as the Asa Gray, most flight crews arrived by air in their new B-24 Liberator bombers. Most crew members had never flown over water, and many had never left their hometowns. Some were barely 18 when they departed for the Mediterranean theater. Others lied about their age in order to serve. Birney's Air Echelon departed for the Overseas Service staging area at McCook Army Airfield in Lincoln, Nebraska on February 9, 1944. From there, aircraft crews took off singly for their overseas destination. Their first stop in their transatlantic flight was off on the Azore Islands. Its steel net runway jutted precipitously out over the cold Atlantic water. From there, they proceeded eastwards towards the Mediterranean theater. Eventually, Birney and his crew settled at their permanent staging base in Pantanella, Italy. Birney's first mission, a daunting one at that, would be a carefully calculated squadron bomb strike on the critical Ploesti oil fields in Romania. While the mission of the 15th Air Force was to strike a fatal blow to such targets as Germany's ball-bearing plants, marshalling yards, and military factories, the cities of Europe, such as Vienna, Austria, crumbled under the extreme residual damage inflicted by the Third Reich. On the Eastern Front, the Russians were pushing the Germans back. General Patton, meanwhile, was closing in from the west and the south. In the last months of the war, the Germans moved thousands of anti-aircraft pieces into an extremely concentrated area. With improved radar and impressive defenses, the Germans presented a mighty challenge to the 15th Army Air Corps. March 1944, Italy. 7 months after Italy surrendered to the Allies, its airfields resound with growing American air might. From rebuilt Axis bases, the Allies are now poised to attack Nazi Germany beyond the working range of bombers based in England. Allied air forces have gradually achieved air superiority. The 15th Air Force is soon handed its biggest challenge to date: fly through Hitler's back door and destroy his oil and aircraft manufacturing infrastructure. July 3, 1944. Operation Crossbow, the code name for the British-American bombing campaign against German manufacturing infrastructure, is in full gear. Birney Flatley, flight engineer and top gunner with the 464th Bombardment Group, busily completes his pre-mission aircraft checks. Thumbs up, the mission is a go. Mission, target, the oil fields of Ploesti, Romania. The 10-man crew boards the bomb-laden B-24 Liberator. They take off and commence a slow, steady climb to flight altitude of 21 to 24,000 feet. Birney remains in the cockpit of the B-24 along with the two pilots. He monitors the flight panel and maintains steady communication with other crew members. Although still early in the 600-mile run to the target, the crew is ordered to cut into flak suits as a kind of insurance. At target altitude, they skim the peaceful Yugoslav mountains, peaceful until they bristle with flak gunfire. The 15th learns the hard way that Ploesti has become the third best defended location on the continent. On many missions, Birney's 464th is joined by one of the greatest bomber escort troops in American aviation history, the Tuskegee Airmen. During World War II, a rigid pattern of racial segregation prevailed. Isolated in training near Tuskegee, Alabama, nearly 1,000 African-American military aviators prepared for duty as Palmer escorts in the European theater. 450 Tuskegee pilots, under the command of Colonel Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., fought in the aerial war over North Africa, Sicily, and Europe. They rose from adversity, and through competence, courage, commitment, and capacity, they served America on silver wings, setting a standard few will ever transcend. Throughout Bernie's Ploesti bombing journey, the Tuskegee escort maintains a protective shield around the massive B-24 flight formation, fighting off enemy fighter craft with expert precision. The massive 15th Bomber Contingent gets over Ploesti and is greeted warmly by enemy fire, ramping round upon round of deadly flak. But it doesn't stop the 15th. The enemy jabs and Allied 51s swoop into battle. Over the course of the next month, the hard-hit German enemy fighter strength falls apart. Displaying courage far beyond the call of duty, our boys drive the enemy into the ground. Though steady flak keeps Bernie and other bomber crews on their toes, they wade through it all the way to the target. The full weight of their attack falls on Ploesti. In a short span of less than a month's time, the steady pounding inflicted by the 15th Air Force whittles away 90% of Romanian oil production. The global and greedy designs of an Axis dictator are consumed in a blazing, oily Ploesti. October 1944. With a record 51 missions under his belt, 21 more than the normal Air Force limit, Tech Sergeant Bernie Flatley, along with his 464th Squadron partners, are issued final mission orders. Their new mission checkpoint, the Statue of Liberty. Their new mission target, home. Once stateside, Bernie travels quickly back to Wisconsin, where family and friends greet a proud, relieved, and highly decorated Army Air Force Tech Sergeant. Soon afterwards, Bernie enrolls in the engineering program at Marquette University, where he will eventually team up with Ed DePreter and Tim Goss to foster a loving, lifelong friendship that continues to this very day.